Hi Porsche people, I've got a 2015 Porsche Macan Turbo that has some really bad sun damage on the dash, and I bought a used dash off eBay that's in good shape, and I'm going to swap it out. We'll go over how to do that. Here's the car, 2015 Macan Turbo. Apologize, it's dirty right now. And let's see, let's show you some of the sun damage. So this car, I live in Kansas City, but this car came from Palm Beach, and it was, the dash shoulders in pretty bad shape. The previous owner actually replaced the front portion of it, the part that normally goes first. And if you look closely, you can tell it's not the same color. It's like a dark gray versus a black. So there's that problem. Then we've got some damage in the corners up here. And then, of course, the defroster vent is really damaged. So I just decided that I would replace the entire dash. I was able to find a good used one on eBay. There's the box. I'm going to unbox it in a minute for, I don't know, $400 and some plus shipping. Ended up being about $700 total, a little over $7 with tax and shipping. I've gone through the instructions, the workshop manual, and figured out, what needs to be done. There's quite a few steps, but it doesn't look like any particular step is super difficult. And then I've got the workshop manual here on my iPad that I can go back and forth to look at. Supposedly it's about a 3-hour job to swap it out. We'll see, it'll probably take me longer. You need a special tool to pull the air vents. Looks kind of like this. It looks like most of the people that I've seen on the internet have fabricated their own. I tried to buy one off of Amazon. The ones that came in were just too small. The rods weren't big enough around. They were like a coat, wire coat hanger length. I just went to Home Depot, got a 3/16 by 12-inch rod. I'm going to bend one end into a hook and then the other one into kind of a handle to allow me to pull. So as I said, I've read through the workshop manual and kind of come up with the steps here. The idea is that basically this dashboard cover really, it's held on by only looks like 5 screws, and there's a whole bunch of parts that get inserted into it and kind of hold it in place as well. So if you read through the workshop manual, basically it's saying, well, you remove a whole bunch of things first, and then once everything's out, like I said, I think there's like 5 or maybe 7 bolts to hold it in. There's some tabs up at the very, front of the windshield. I think there's 3 tabs that you have to slide in. At least that's what it says. So, we're going to move the glove compartment. We're going to remove this underside trim. We're going to go pull out the PCM display. There's a couple of preliminary things. You got to remove the vents on either side of that. Defroster trim. Remove the left and the right speaker trims in the corners. This one's kind of interesting because there's some sort of module sitting on top of it. And we have to pull the steering wheel, and then the instrument cluster. And then, once you get all that, you can kind of, then you're actually starting to remove the dashboard, the side air blades, or the air guides rather, the passenger airbag underneath the dash up there. And then I guess it is 5 fastening screws that hold it on. Then you pull it forward a little bit and then up, and there's a whole bunch of electrical lines. I'm going to take a picture of that, make sure I get them back in the right spot. And pull the speakers out from underneath the dash. Pull the dashboard out then, and then stick the new one in, and installation's kind of reverse of removal. So that's what we're going to be doing. Just unpack the new dashboard. I'm going to lay the part of the cardboard out, so as I'm taking things out of the Macan, I'm going to lay them out here. So this will be the driver's side of the dash, and so I suspect at some point we're going to have a whole bunch of parts laid out on that. But the new dashboard actually looks like it's in real nice shape. I'm not seeing any leather lifting up. You know, it looks like it's real solid. It may not be perfect, it may not be brand new, but boy, it sure looks a heck of a lot better than the one that we have. Let's see if we can get a sneak peek and see some of the tabs they were talking about. I guess maybe that's what these are here. These are slots for tabs to go into. And then you can kind of see how, you know, that's why I like with a new part, when you have the new part and you're getting ready to take out the old one, you can kind of cheat and look and see how things are attached. You know, these vents, for example, and that's where the PCM is going to go. So quite a few screws, quite a few just, you know, press fit tabs. So, all right, so there's our patient that we're going to install. That's our organ, I should say. The patient's over here. That's the transplant. So here's that rod built into a trim removal tool that I just made. So I'm going to use this, put my hands on to pull, and I made this hook just a little bit more than a 90-degree angle. I may have to make it even more of an angle. We'll see. Okay, before we start working on the car, we are going to disconnect the battery. For those of you who don't know, the battery is underneath the spare tire under the cargo hold. Once you get the spare out, which is really easy, now you can see the carpet is, or the felt material is cut. Pull these tabs back here, and voila, there's the battery. And we're just going to disconnect the negative cable, and we'll wrap it up to make sure it doesn't accidentally connect with anything. Actually, I'll probably disconnect both just to be safe, since we're working around airbags. Okay, both sides disconnected. I've got rags wrapped around the negative side and underneath the positive side just to make sure those things don't reconnect. Oh, I did run the seats all the way back, and I got a bunch of Ziploc bags because we probably have a bunch of small screws and stuff. We're going to remove the glove box first, and first step is remove the side panels on either side. I believe they just pop off. They do just pop off. Next step is to release or pull this trim panel. This is going to be the first time that I'm really worried. I feel like really tearing into the car at this point. Okay, so I put my hook into the vent and was able to pull pretty easily. Actually, it wasn't as hard as what I'd seen online and other places. So I'll finish trying to pull this right side over here. The workshop manual refers to a crash clamp, and what that is there's a hole that you stick a screwdriver in, and you just push, and it's basically, it's this little tab right here that you're pushing in, and then it comes out much easier. So that tab right there. All right, so I had to pull on it on both sides, and this one right there was kind of stubborn. I really kind of had to put the hook back in and work on it. Okay, this was kind of pain in the ass, but I just figured it out. So you've got temperature sensor plugs on each side here, and it just says disconnect them, but it doesn't tell you how to disconnect them. So I spent about 5 minutes figuring it out. If you look here, there's a little hole, and there's a spring there. I tried to like press down here with my thumb, and I wasn't getting anywhere. So what I ended up doing was taking a pick, and you can see the hole on this one. And I just pushed down on that and pulled, and it looks like it's going to come out now. Yep. Okay, so we're going to put our first real piece of trim on our board. So that's the right side, that's the left side, and hopefully this will be filled up pretty quick. Dashboard, it says there's some screws under here, some screws there on the top, some screws on the side, and we open the dash the glove box and remove those screws. We'll do that next. And these are T25 Torx. So you take this trim panel off around the glove box, and then there's going to be 3 more glove box screws at the top of the glove box. Now I've got it out. Now I've got to unhook a couple of wires, it looks like. Shouldn't be ran into a little snag here. There's actually an airbag underneath here. You can see the squib there. And workshop manual doesn't, it just says to unclip that and pull the glove box out. Well, you got a big airbag line going in here and down to that squib. So I'm not sure what we're supposed to do with it. It looks at like that airbag electrical line has like a clip here onto the metal frame, and then I think you just pull that orange tab up and disconnect the connector from the squib. So I'm going to try to do that. Okay, so I was able to get this airbag connection off. I actually, to get that orange tab to lift up there, to get it off, I actually had to go through the underside. Just used a tiny screwdriver here, and I was able to get to that orange tab, lift it up, and I can lift the yellow connector off the end. And then this thing here was attached to the frame right there. You can see where the frame is kind of scratched up. And I apologize, it's not focusing in. And you know, just use a bigger screwdriver to kind of release those grabber tabs there, pull that off. So that was not in the workshop manual. Next was pulling out the vents on the either side of the steering wheel. I just used my tool. This tool actually works really well. They just popped right out. I guess it's thick enough and has just enough of an angle on the tip that it works really, really well. This piece here was connected to both of those, and there's a clip back behind here. I think that's going to come out later, but this clip goes into those dash vents, and I did notice that that one of them is broken off here. So I don't know if I did that or if somebody else had been here before, because these indicators, I think there's a built-in radar detector on this car, and these indicators were sticking out of the dash before, and so somebody had obviously been in here, so maybe it wasn't me that broke that, but the previous person. That may be why the vents came out easier too. But oh, the other thing I was going to tell you, one of these was actually upside down, so I could not get to the little hole on the top, but you can just slide a small screwdriver underneath the front part and get it to release that way. So just a heads up on that. And next is going to be removing this bottom dash piece. I'm pretty sure it's just removing these screws here, and obviously I have to unplug these switches, and then out comes the this unit. I think actually this door comes out first, and there's just there's a screw here and a screw there, and then this screw and that screw, and you can pull this unit. I went through and removed, you know, a bunch of these screws. They're all basically the same screw. I was keeping the dashboard, I'm sorry, the right side screws separate, but I don't think there's any need. It looks like every screw is exactly the same. They're T25s, and you know, they just come right out. The torque is like 2 Newton meters, so when you put them back in, you don't have to really crank them down, but no big deal. So there's a bunch of screws that can come out to remove. It looks like the instrument panel, the PCM, this lower trim panel. So easy peasy on that. I think I'm gonna have to do the steering wheel. Hey, look what I found tucked behind here. I thought there was a K40 unit in here, so I don't know if it's working or not, but anyway, just thought it was kind of interesting. You never know what you're going to find behind these. I'm running into a little bit of trouble on this. I've removed all the screws that the workshop manual is showing. I've got this spaghetti for the radar detector, which I may just remove. But there's something holding it up back here, and I can't figure out what it is. I don't know if it's just a clip. I believe I've got all the screws. There's 2 screws under here. I got those out. So I'm going to work on that. A little progress, but it's really frustrating. I will tell you that there's a clip at the top, or there's a tab at the top of the dead pedal that hooks in right underneath the OBD2. That damn thing is like 3 inches long. I tried to pull this pedal off, but it's hooked in over here on the side. Workshop manual doesn't say anything about that, so I'm gonna have to figure that out. But I did get the panel to come down. It was being held up. Basically, this spot right here was kind of catching, so I really kind of had to pull it in toward me and get it to go down. So I made some progress there. Now we got to figure out what other clips are underneath there that's holding this thing in. Finally got this out. There was just kind of a really stubborn clip. I guess it was these tabs here. They really didn't want to come down. I just kind of, move things around, and that's gonna be fun getting that back in. Now I got to get that dead pedal clip off. That's the thing that's holding it on. I got the dead pedal off. Basically, I reached around to the top edge of the dead pedal and I pulled it way back and kind of wrestled it out. So that's again going to be fun to get back in. Okay, so we got that bottom trim panel out. Starting to look like the Terminator in here. Starting to get a good collection over here. Next couple of things are to remove this, which should just pull right out because you have the screws undone. And then we've got to pull out a defroster panel, which includes, this is a preliminary step to pull out this clock, which I think is going to be no big deal. It's just stuck in there with clips. So we'll work on that next. Yep. This unit just slides right out, once you got those screws out. So it should come off over the gear shift. I'm going to put a towel over that though, just to protect it out. So the bottom part come out and up to go over this gear shift knob because it's pretty tight otherwise. But once you do that, it comes out easily. Something here, these little kind of translucent tabs at the top, I kept pushing them down and pushing them up. I couldn't get those things to come out, and actually you have to pull the tab outward and then you can get the plug off. This little guy here, this little screwdriver like that, tiny little screwdriver is going to be your best friend on this project. Okay, word to the wise on pulling out the stereo. There's one huge plug. I could not get these last two bits of wire out, and I'm like, man, it just does not seem right. It looks like they don't want to come out. As it turns out, that whole plug comes out, so I had pulled out several other wires from that plug, so I think I'll just go ahead and put them back together now, and that way that entire plug can go in as one unit when I put this back together. So it just so you know, up here at the top, you squeeze that together and then pull this arm out. So that's how it comes. All right, next up, I think we're going to pull that and the two speakers. That popped out right out. Really no big deal. Just kind of put a trim tool underneath there. The one thing you got to watch is these two hooks here right at the front, and then in the back there's some hooks as well that go in at the very back edge. All right, next little snag is on the left loudspeaker. I think we're gonna have the same thing on the right loudspeaker. It just, pops up here. They're just clipped in. The problem is on the workshop manual, it shows some sort of a trim or tail, and it appears to go underneath this A-pillar. So I'm not sure if you have to pull the A-pillar cover or not. Really not looking forward to that. But maybe you have to. Okay, so I did get it out, and that's exactly what it was. It was just clipped underneath the A-pillar there, right there. So I guess when we put it back in, we're gonna have to lift up that tab there and get this section underneath there. Hopefully it's doable. So on the right side, I did go ahead, there's one screw, and then there's just, several clips in here to pull off the A-pillar, so it wasn't that bad. And look at this, there was a big old piece hidden under there. So chicken and egg type thing, this thing did not really want to come out. It almost felt like you have to put it in before you put the dash in. But my guess is that I should have taken it out on the other side as well. It doesn't say anything in there in the workshop manual about doing that, but clearly it looks appropriate. Okay, the last two preliminaries are taking the the instrument panel trim off. The bottom trim is the leather part, and it just unclips from the back side of this. You just pop it off, and then the top, use a trim tool and pull it down. It comes right out. Then you can see there's 2 screws here holding the instrument panel in. I took those out. Then there's 2 screws back underneath here, and you can't get to them with the steering wheel on. So actually the steering wheel comes off before the instrument panel, so that's what I'm working on now. I was able to get it out. I think I mentioned earlier on this car has got all leather, so there weren't any apparent holes. I had to poke around with a small screwdriver and find and make a hole there, and then you can see inside what you're pushing on. You see that little lever there moving back there. There's one on each side. There's one over here as well, and that catches those little nubs there. And so you undo one side and kind of pull the bag out cockeyed, and then you do the other side and it comes right out. Now I've got to undo this. It looks like it's a triple square. I'll let you know what size it is. And they say that you need to make sure that you mark it correctly, or else your steering wheel will be off. But you know, I did try to get this pretty much, you know, perfectly parallel, so hopefully I won't be off. But I am going to try to mark it. I'm just not sure exactly what you're supposed to mark, because this looks like a nut. So I don't know, maybe I get that out and it's apparent what you mark. Okay, so that steering wheel bolt is a triple square 12 millimeter. So that's what goes in there. It looks like you're going to need an extension, you know, to be able to turn it, but it's a 12. Okay, so like I thought, there was nothing to mark on that. That's a pretty robust nut there, but it looks to me like down in here is where we're gonna mark. So, and there's tons of fine little teeth, so I am gonna put marks on there on both the steering wheel itself and the hub, I guess. So I'm getting ready to mark it, and I don't know if you can see, but it's already marked. There's a mark on the steering wheel, and there's a mark on the shaft. So I'm just going to make sure those two line back up. You can take the steering wheel off, though. There is a connection for the airbags to the clock spring. So I'm assuming that tab goes down and you can pull that thing off. We'll try it, and that's correct. You just push down on that little tab, and then it comes right off. So looks like there's something else holding us on. Let's see what that is. And there was another little clip on the back side that again held to the clock spring, and so it was easy to get it off. You just push that little tab down, it came right out. Okay, so if I was doing this again, I would, and I'll put a note in the comments, but I would run the steering wheel column all the way down, because it's still blocking me from getting to those last 2 screws. I think I'll be able to get to them okay, but if I'd have run the steering wheel down, I think that would have been better. Yeah, you definitely want to run that steering wheel down to a lower position, because it's tough to get. I'm going to be able to get it out, but boy, it sure would be nicer if that steering wheel column was lower. This green connector, connector, it looks like there's a tab on the very bottom, by the way. I think I can get it out that way. Okay, I did have to give up and hook the power back up and lower that steering column, because I just could not get that instrument panel out. So that means my airbag's going to have to be reset. Thankfully, I do have a good scan tool, so hopefully I'll be able to do that. Got the last connector off. It was one of those that you just kind of lift up and over. And looks like we're ready to remove the dash now. One thing I had forgotten to do earlier was pull out the defroster vent that just popped out. It was really easy. There's a clip there, electrical clip for a sensor in the center of that thing, and it came out fine. I took out some screws. There's 2 screws. They're kind of hidden back up in here, but you can find them easy enough. There's 2 on each side, driver's side and passenger side. And then there was a bracket bolt right here to take out. And now there's 4 bolts on this airbag, passenger airbag. They're right up here. You can see them. I'm pointing right at them. There's 2 on each side. They were really tight. I'm going to have to use a torx bit that's, impact torx to get them out. All these other torx screws have been, very easy to get out. And the torx bit that I've been using is, not a hardened steel one, but I can tell it's not going to get these screws out on this airbag. Got those 4 airbag screws out. Actually, it turns out they were T27s, not T25s. And, but I still had to have like a hardened T27 bit, like an impact bit, to get those things out. Looks like they've it some Loctite on them. So that's probably why they're so hard to get out. I left the airbag up in there because it looks like it's gonna be a pain to kind of get out. And I'm thinking that we could probably slide the old one out, slide the old dash out and put it back in over that. There's some wire clips on that bracket as well. At this point, we have 5 mounting screws left, 1 down there, 1 on either side of the steering wheel, and 1 on either side of the stereo system. So it's right there. Same place over there. Okay, so the dashboard is finally loose. They basically say pull it up and out a little bit, and then it says to unplug the electrical connectors from the 3 speakers, left, center, and right. Well, I already got the center out, no problem, so I'll do the left and the right next. And then the next step is to actually remove the old dash. The speakers in the corners had this really weird electrical connection. So rather than fumbling around and trying to disconnect them, I just went ahead and removed them and then dropped them back through there. So I've got the dashboard out. It looks like I do have a couple of wires though I need to disconnect over here on the right. Looks like I'm gonna have to cut a zip tie right here. And I also wanted to show you that I did just leave the airbag in there, even though, it's unhooked from its bracket. I may pull that out and try to mount it in the new dash before I put it in. All right, so I think the old one's ready to come out. So here's the old dashboard sitting in my lap. I'm still sitting in the car. It's tempting to think, well, maybe I could just have glued this down. There's no way. This is not. It's just permanently warped. That leather is. This dashboard's going in the trash. Okay, so here's the new one, right next to the old one. And you can see, where all that damage was. That dashboard was pretty nasty. It had really gotten sun beaten. Even though the front edge of it had been replaced, the color didn't match. You can tell, we're looking at it there. Plus there was other sun damage as well. It's always kind of interesting to see a car without its dashboard. I don't know, it's almost like a mythical place underneath the dashboard. A lot of sound insulation Porsche puts in. Oh, by the way, I ended up just taking out that old radar detector. I never could get it to come on. It didn't look like it was wired very well, so I just cut the thing out, disconnected the power and cut the thing out. So, all right, well, there's your look at your dashboard. Here, there are 3 tabs. It shows it in the workshop manual that we're going to slide this new one on, 1, 2, and 3. So we'll watch for that as we slide the new one on. I just noticed as I was sliding this in is my car has the Burmester stereo. This one must have had the Bose. It looks like they actually, we have to cut the old ones out and then move those clips over so that the Burmester stereo speakers can go back in. Oh, by the way, here's my here's all the dashboard pieces. It's a nice full cardboard set now. Okay, so I have the new dash in place. I've got the speakers hooked in, and I've got the electrical wires running through the spots that need to be running through, and I am ready to engage those 3 tabs in the back that we looked at earlier, and make sure that they get engaged in with the right spots on the new dash. Okay, I got the new dash situated. It wasn't too bad. You make sure the dash kind of goes on top of those 3 tabs. It really doesn't slot in to the dash. The tricky part was right down here. There is you see this slot in the bottom of the radio hole. There is a bolt that sticks up underneath there. And if we go over here and look at the old one, you'll see that you got to get that bolt going in that slot right there. Once you do that, it all kind of clicks in. Something that helped a great deal was, leaving that airbag in place and hooking it to the dash before you set the dash in a final spot. That really made those screws easier to get in, because you didn't have to fight with those brackets that sit right underneath the screws, and it didn't cause any problems sliding in. So we've got the dash secured, and now really it's time to just start hanging things back on. We'll go in the reverse order. I'm going to put the speaker grills in and these A-pillars. Hopefully that's not too bad. And then we'll go that center speaker, and then we'll instrument panel, steering wheel, and just kind of get it back together. I'll check in with you in a few. Well, I've gotten it all back together. Went together fine. Somehow it ended up with 4 extra screws. Don't know where those were. I don't think I missed anything. Maybe I took them out of the old dash and they were already in the new dash, and I didn't need to have removed them. I don't know. So now I'm going to have to start the car up, and probably going to have to reset the airbag, since I had to turn the power on with the airbags out when I had to lower the steering wheel. So we'll see how that goes. We got it finished. I took it for a test drive. Everything's good. I put the scanner on it. Had a few kind of unusual electrical codes, so I cleared those out. No problem. I didn't even have to, didn't get the SRS, the airbag light. So that was interesting. I guess because I didn't turn the ignition on. So we're all good. It's late at night. I started at 1. It is now about a little after 2, so 13 hours. But I stopped a lot. I stopped to eat dinner, spend time with the family. We had some workmen here. So I would say all told, 6 hours, probably 6, maybe 7 hours for the first time. If I was doing it again, taking it apart, putting it back together, I could do it in 3, I think. Yeah, no, it was, I'm happy. I've got a dash now that's looks perfect, and very pleased. So about, well, definitely between $700 and $800 total to get that taken care of. So I think thumbs up on this one. I will do a post-mortem on the old dash, and I'll add that in at the very end.